I'll let him in graciously. All right. Hi, welcome to Thursday Book Launch. My name is Malika Albrecht. I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces tonight, all here to celebrate Joan Barasovska, just like me. We are going to be celebrating her newest book, and there it is. Perfect timing, Joan. It's like we worked this out. Carrying Claire by Main Street Rag. There is a link in the chat section. And like we've been saying, there's a bit of a delay in production. Oh, good. Barry's here. I'm letting him in, Maureen. Is that okay? All right, Joan, I'm not going to take up much time. I'm sure that a lot of us are here because we already know your work and adore you. If you don't know Joan, because this will be recorded and some people do watch the recordings on our YouTube channel. Joan lives in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She's been on the board of the North Carolina Poetry Society for 6, coming up on 7 years. 10? I didn't realize it was that many.
I think it's 6 years.
Okay. Yeah. For 30 years, Joan has been an academic therapist in private practice. Her poems have appeared in a variety of places, such as Madness Muse. Of course, we all know Kakalak. We've also, got Richard Taylor here, the co-founder of the Kakalak anthology. Yeah, so I saw somebody clapping. Yeah, Karen, I agree. And also Main Street Rag. In 2020, Joan was nominated for Best of the Net and a Pushcart Prize. So Joan, with no further noise from me, I'm going to spotlight you. I'm going to remind everybody to mute, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Before I begin reading, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the frightened children of Ukraine, all those fearing for their lives and those too young to know what they fear. Carrying Claire is a book about a frightened child and her mother. The poems take the reader from the mother's pregnancy to the daughter's own first pregnancy. I'm going to read with minimal comments. Carrying Claire. Mystery, conceived in passion, spreads a tent inside my body, scoops out space I'd blithely claimed as mine. I grow heavy with her campsite and the gear we've taken on. After work each day, I buy a secret chocolatey Claire and eat it at Nelson's Bakery, where I'll soon show off my baby. Her father grants me naming rights if it's a girl. On a cold day at the beach, jacket straining to span my belly, with one booted foot, I trace her name in giant letters in wet sand. Claire. I pray this hidden daughter, now assembling all she'll require, will live to be my better self, take chances I could never take. I pray for a safe birth. I pray to be the mother she will need. Her father and I wait for March. He says she could easily be a boy, but our daughter's eyes, not yet open, greedily seek mine. Fill in the blanks. In a delivery room at Beth Israel Hospital, as my ribs are stitched by a doctor who strikes me as annoyed, I turn my head to the huddle around our baby and hear bafflement. Your baby is healthy, but there's a problem. Oh, mothers, lying awake in the maternity ward, babe beside you, wondering how bad it will be. Oh, fathers, lying awake beside the bassinet, wondering how bad it will be. It could be bad. And then 3 years later, we hand her over. Our Claire, lying on her back, is rolled off to an operating room. Candies, the stuffed black cat, is tucked beside her.
Of the seaways and the seaports. And so what you have is really the ability for us to slowly choke Ukraine out.
Okay,
I apologize.
there we go. I'll begin again. We hand her over. Our Claire, lying on her back, is rolled off to an operating room. Candies, the stuffed black cat, is tucked beside her. No breakfast this morning. Claire has been whining about that. A nurse chats to Claire brightly, and she chats brightly back. She's lost to us, down a hallway, out of view. We sink sobbing into each other's arms in the first floor lobby of Children's Hospital. A huge aquarium bubbles in the middle of the room. We are shipwrecked, unable to see land. These are the days of ether and counting slowly backwards. We don't know what the hell to count on for our daughter. That nurse comes back to hand us candies. Our shame. Because the surgeons who would operate on Claire disagreed on the morning of her surgery about how to proceed, and her syndrome is rare, because they left the choice to us, her parents, who were ignorant, we made the wrong choice. The one presented as easier on our daughter because we couldn't ask the right questions about easy and hard, because we wanted easy. Claire's first of so many surgeries failed. A walk on Palmer Avenue. Claire whimpers to go home, a child of 3, scared by a toadstool sticking from a crack in the sidewalk. She fears the mushroom will put her to sleep, make her feel strange, like Snow White's poisoned apple, like an ethered mask descending. I don't see menace in the sidewalk. The poison in my dreams courses through Claire's body. Bacteria that heats her, won't leave her, makes her weak, changes her. What poisons me is Snow White's never waking, that we never find the surgeon prince who shakes us from our spell.
Just a reminder to please make sure you're muted, people.
And then about 1 year later, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. I've nursed, rocked, patted the baby to sleep. I'm bathing 4-year-old Claire, who repeats, "Why can't you just put him back in your belly? Dear, sweet, stupid little Johnny." Hoping to put this refrain to bed, I try a new tack, sitting back on my heels on the blue bath mat. When you were in my belly, I wanted so much for you to be a girl. I was very happy when the doctor said to Daddy and me, "It's a girl." Claire takes a beat, says, "Maybe you think like I do, that girls are a little bit better than boys." With this temporary truce, we proceed. Over and over. We wheel Claire past the nurse's station, this admission following fast upon the last. She sings out gaily to her nurse friends, I come and I go, and I come and I go. Different doctors, different medicines, different surgeons, different surgeries, the same cycles of crisis and recovery, terror, and tentative relief. Winchester Hospital. I straddle my feverish, thrashing daughter on her hospital bed while a nurse makes her 9th attempt to start an IV line, but it's midnight. Claire's veins are shot. This young nurse is losing her confidence. She does what she should have done an hour ago, call for help with the IV. Claire drifts off while we wait. She's just a child clutching Candies, her stuffed black cat. Candies will, in 3 days, suffer an accidental decapitation in the hospital laundry. What will stay in Claire's memory? This night, when I pinned her down on bloody sheets, the meter of her childhood, sick, healthy, sick. The young nurse who was so sorry that first night takes the parts of Candy's home and stitches her head on, ties a red ribbon around her neck to keep it from wobbling. Broken. If only I could hold her whole as she was when my body carried her, but we're far beyond that. A portacath protrudes from Claire's chest, hidden under her crisp school blouse. Her surgical scars stay bandaged and secret. She smashes homework in the trash can, provokes her brother, stomps, storms, shouts, I hate you at me. If only I could seal my girl's body against illness and intrusion, swaddle her, cradle her again in my mother's rocking chair. Too much is denied her, missed when she's sick at home or suffering in the hospital. I hate this. If only I could offer her ordinary everything, the intact body of a healthy child. She kicks against the confines of her difference. When her lost doll is found broken, Claire hurls it across the room. And I'm going to read one last poem. Green Lasagna. Blue flames, steaming water, tomato sauce popping. Claire's apron hangs to her shins. She pinches off spinach stems, grates mozzarella, Parmesan, scoops a finger in regatta. My mother's recipe, written in my own green pen on water-stained lined paper, tells how much, how many. Claire doesn't like numbers. I measure, she chatters. I learned to pinch off scolding words early on. Noodles slide into the pot, but she can't do that. Instead, she stirs the sauce. She cracks 2 eggs, whips them with a fork and too much salt. Cheeses glop into the bowl. Claire wields a wooden spoon. She loves the squishy sound. I love my daughter by my side, working with me, her battle in abeyance. We're building dinner. The timer dings. The slippery noodles splash into the colander. She laughs at my steamy glasses. She loves me. She loves more to laugh at me. We lay down our layers. Mine, hot noodles, hot sauce. Hers, spinach, cheese glop. Stripes of red, green, white. Mother, daughter, mother, daughter. And now I thought I would read the foreword to the book before we begin questions, because I think this will answer a lot of your questions. I call it a note before. The rare syndrome with which Claire was eventually diagnosed goes unnamed here for two reasons. Most important, I promised Claire early in the project to protect her privacy. For the same reason, I omit her young adulthood. Almost equally important, if I leave readers to fill in the blanks, they can read into our family story their own experience of parenting a child with chronic illness, birth defect, or disability, or of being that child. And now, have at me.
Joan, can we first start by letting everybody unmute and just say thank you?
Awesome.
Thank you. Lovely reading.
Thank you.
And I really look forward to sending you the chat section so you can see people's response, because I know there's no way you could have tracked them, but there's a lot of lines that really resonated. And as I'm always shocked with the how often 2 or 3 people will cite the same line or put down the same thing almost at the same time, and that is pretty wow, is what Christy just wrote. I like your forward. I think that that's what happens, right? When we relate to poetry, we do tend to put some of our own details in there. So that makes sense. And also navigating when you write something so close to home with people that are, still alive and have opinions and thoughts. Having navigated that myself, I know that that's a gentle balancing act. Bravo. What did I'm certain that you showed her all of these as you did, as you wrote them. What were the responses?
Well, I didn't, first of all, we'll get into how the project began, but I knew I could write them without her permission, but almost immediately I conceived of it as a book, and so I really needed permission, and I talked to her and asked her about that, and she granted permission, and then somehow that gave me more freedom to write. And I used the journals. I had to read the journals that I kept when the children were growing up, and it forced me back into some of the nightmares. But that was a necessity. So I didn't show it to her until I asked her to paginate it for me.
Interesting.
Which is sometimes tricky for me. And I asked her to read it at the same time. And then I I added more poems, some more intimate than the ones you heard, and I asked her permission for those, and she granted me permission for everything.
Awesome.
Right.
No, thank you for answering that. And I saw a lot of people shaking their heads, and the pagination, yes, definitely. But I love that, asking and speaking to her gave you more permission and kind of freed up that flow. I did want to say, we're getting quite a few things that I thought I should say to you out loud right now. Regina said, I'm so glad to hear them in sequence. It was like a poetry concert.
Oh,
Lucinda
Yeah.
said, profoundly beautiful. Thank you for writing and sharing your finely told and deeply honest story. I'm in awe. Barry also, wrote for courage. Thank you for these courageous poems. So I look forward to sending these to you. But obviously they're deeply resonating with people. James just said, I can see that the therapist informs the poet, and the poet must inform the poet. But I'm thinking also, yeah, I love how careful you are. That's a beautiful way to put it, James, because I do think you get the sense that there is somebody very aware as they write of impact. So that's an interesting insight. So I did want to open it up for people to ask questions. So, I didn't see any questions in the chat section, but please feel, okay, great. Chris has some. Chris Abadi said, can you talk about the emotional challenges you had while writing these poems and how long it took to write them? So just an overview of the length of this project. Were there any aspects of Claire's condition that were too difficult to write about?
This was entirely a pandemic project, if
ah,
I don't like to name it that way because it had nothing to do with that, but I completed, or thought I completed, another manuscript. That book will come out in the fall, and I live alone. I needed another project. I absolutely had to have a project to get through being so sequestered. And so I knew I had a story. And it came to me very quickly with the title poem of Carrying Claire, which was the title of the journal I kept when I was pregnant with Claire. Carrying John just doesn't have the resonance that it could have been John, but it was Claire. So they were all written in less than a year. They're all new poems. And the process, was it painful? Oh yes, very painful. Some of the poems are playful, are about Claire's feistiness, the fun of raising her, but for most of them, I had to mine very painful memories. But there they are on the page, a memory like Winchester Hospital and the bloody IV thing. It's on the page. I don't have to carry it in my head anymore. How many poems are in the collection, Sam? I think there are 30. I think there are 30. Yeah, it's a chapbook.
Yeah, and people are writing some great questions here. So I'm going to bring you to one that Lucinda just wrote. Joan, how did the other family members react?
Other family members. Well, my son, John, dear, sweet, stupid little Johnny, as Claire said, does not, although he's very supportive of my poetry, he himself is a scholar, he never reads it. That's his position, because it's too personal. So he didn't get a chance to react. Even though there's a poem about his birth, There's a poem called The Two of Them, about how that begins with him saying it's all about Claire, about the balance within a family when there's a child who is sick. No, he's not going to read it. And my ex-husband, who knows? Who knows if he'll ever see it? I have no idea.
Thank you. I like this one. Nancy said, how did the process change you?
It changed me. Well, first, I'm very proud of this work. It changed me because in this way, Claire and I are closer now than we were. Because something of that battle that began in her early childhood lingered. She'll turn 38 this month, but she's the mother of 2 boys now, and reading these poems and realizing, this is all my conjecture, realizing what it was like to bring her up and what we went through. I think she has more self-understanding, and she has been, well, we had a very good visit over Christmas. She has just been more kindly towards me.
I think this really dovetails into what you just said, Teresa. You said, did you find the project therapeutic for you as a poet and a mother? And it's almost like you knew the answer was coming, Teresa. Yeah. The other question that was right after that too, just wow, people are coming up with lots of questions. Levon said, what types of forms did you use for these poems? So Teresa's insight or question, didn't you find the project therapeutic for you as a poet and a mother? And then Levon's, what types of forms did you use for these poems?
Forms. Well, I'm not a formal poet generally. I've written one sestina in my life. They are written, the stanzas generally have the same number of lines. I can't even, I can't speak to form. They're not formal poems.
Well, your response answers that question. The saying that you were doing free verse and you used a certain amount of lines in each stanza still implies that you're using the form of the poem in order to deal with the subject matter, as opposed to one long stanza, which would be like just trying to get everything out on the paper. So I think that does say something important about what you're doing.
Yeah, and it makes me want to look at the numbers of lines in each stanza, Levon, to see, does that change? And there's intuitive things that happen, even if we're not using a strict form that's identified by others. There's almost a natural flow that people have, much like throwing pottery. People have a certain rhythm, or playing drums. There's a certain rhythm that we hit that seems very identifiable as us. So I'm always fascinated by the form that is intuitive, right? It's a shape, you pour something into something and there it is. So I'd be curious to see, looking back, do you notice any changes in the numbers of lines and stanzas, or how you came to that? Good insight. Sam dovetailed with what Teresa was saying and kind of what you were saying, Joan. I think, noticing that there's a catharsis that happened for both you and perhaps Claire. And that's what Sam said, cathartic for you and Claire then was his question.
I think so. I asked her whether there's anything that she doesn't remember, and she said there's nothing that was a surprise here, except that except she asked me, did Dr. Galladay, and I really was surprised that she remembered his name. He's Dr. G in the poem. Did Dr. Galladay really say it's time to call the Make-A-Wish Foundation in the poem called Make-A-Wish? So, of course, we hadn't told her that. And so that was a shock to her. I don't think until that moment when she read that poem, she knew how very sick she often was.
Yeah, I think that's anybody that's had a chronically ill child or, you know, been in the ICU or had surgeries, multiple surgeries, knows that, you know, that terror. You described it perfectly. I actually was like, it made my heart palpitate, but of handing your child over and how it feels to be shipwrecked and cut adrift and not know where your child is, and to know that you've handed them over to experts, yes, but no outcome is known. So, you know, really beautiful job on catching that sensation.
I remember, thank you, Malika. I remember writing a poem at the time about handing her over to the hands of a man whose life we didn't know.
Yep.
I didn't know if he was a good man.
Nope.
Or, I mean, in his personal life. How could I tell that? How could I know to trust my 3-year-old?
Yeah,
Who was having major surgery.
Beautiful job on that, and definitely related to that, and that sensation of really noticing the hands. See, again, that's that detail of lived experience, and I think that what's key in poetry, whether it's lived experience or even if we're doing persona poems, is those details that are so exact and so evocative of an emotional experience that the reader connects at that deep level, at that very deep level. And so I think that's what, yeah, Joyce just said, listening to Joan and the questions of, participants has been so enriching. Yeah, people have had fabulous, Joyce just said, you know, really great job, people asking fabulous questions. I think that's what's wonderful about these poetry readings online on Zoom, is that we have gotten very casual and able to have back and forth, I think, discussions that are powerful. Does anybody else have a question for Joan? I may have missed one, and I apologize if I have. I do want to remind everybody the link to buy the book is in the chat section, and I can go ahead and redo it so that it's up there again. Please feel free to unmute, and there we go, and directly ask a question if you'd like, or say a comment. All right, it feels like everybody's at a good spot. If we can unmute and clap again, and then we'll be moving into open mic. I did not get anybody's name in here, so what I think we'll probably do is kind of a round robin. We'll just let people raise their hand, and I'll come to you and you may read a poem. If you would rather me not record it, just give me a quick message and I will pause the recording. If it's a new poem, I want you to still be able to publish it somewhere. So Joan, thank you so much for sharing Claire with us and your journey.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, my friends, for being here.
Yeah. Do we have a volunteer for a poem? Christy's got a book coming out. We've got a couple people we will call out here. Regina and Joan were talking about cool poems that they have being made into a choral performance at Tulane, Regina, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks, Joan.
Yes, that's correct.
Can we get it? Fabulous. I've got some hands raised. I'm going to go straight to Teresa Church first. I am going to make you the spotlight. Thank you.
Thank you. I just lost my mother in November, and I've been thinking about her and trying to go through the grief process and have wonderful memories of her. And I'm going to read one When I was probably 3 years old, I remember her coming home from work and her hair had been dressed. She had taken some of her money, the little bit that she made, and decided to spend $2 to get her hair done. And this piece is called Angel Hair. Angel Hair. Spirit of a moment. Papa spins Mama the maid to a stop while coming through town. For $2, Miss Jessie Lathers washes day job dust from my mother's hair. Dabs on Apex, straightens, dresses strands sharp like the first time Mama strummed heartstrings, soft touch Papa's southern soul. Played her Virginia vignette in a one-room schoolhouse yard back before World War II. Pomade sparks a slow fire, hits gardenias, threatens winter with walking papers. Tendrils, Mama's angel hair, cascades ebony, shields me, shadows Papa's mind like strength. Delilah shaved from Samson. Thank you.
I just wanted to say Regina was writing in here. You are taking me to my grandmother's beauty shop. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I love that line too. Lucinda wrote, threatens winter with walking papers. Fabulous. And of course, gardenias. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you.
I am heading to the next person who volunteered. I saw, okay, a couple people. I'm just going to go right to left on my screen. Sherry, I know that you reached out, so I am coming to you to spotlight. And just a reminder, when you're not reading to please mute. I try to keep up where noise is coming from, but sometimes I can't find it right off. Thank you, Sherry.
Going to read a poem. Joan and I did a reading together about a month ago. I've got a new chapbook too called Sweetland. I'm going to read a poem from Sweetland called Early Spring. Palsied beech leaves release their winter grip. I have thrown down the dried nest from the weathered house, brittle and empty, awaiting a mated pair of bluebirds, shocking in their color, their urgency. It was such a long winter and cold, the wind beseeching the way the elderly do, with their eyes when speech is gone, their need as strong as that wind, as prescient as the blue mated pair.
Oh, gorgeous, Sherry. And congratulations on your chapbook. Could you put some details maybe in the chat section? So if somebody wanted to reach out and find it, they could.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the wind beseeching the way the elderly do is what Karen just said. Wow. Thanks, guys. I'm headed to you, Richard, and then I'll be going to Sam and then Laura. And I think I'm keeping up with everybody. Richard, first to you. Make sure you're unmuted.
Am I unmuted now?
You're good. You're live.
Okay. It's good to see you all. Some of you don't know that I recently moved to Myrtle Beach, so I'm speaking to you from sunny South Carolina, but it was really cold here a few weeks ago. And so I'm sitting alone in my apartment and it's cold outside. So that's when I wrote this poem. It's called I Need to Be Around People. I need to be around people, not every day, but on this particular day, I need to be around people who can be at peace with silence, like the moon on a windless night, or who can speak if words are needed to fill in the blank after a sister's death. I need to be around someone who can sit and listen to the story of my latest trouble and nod and pour another cup of coffee. I need to be around people who keep a bottle of wine in the pantry, a jar of Tums handy, a jug of drain cleaner under the sink. I don't need a lecture, a do-it-yourself guide to healthy living, or yoga lessons. I could use the company of a good friend able to marvel at the freezing rain pelting the window while joking about the melodramatic weatherman on Channel 13. But since I'm alone and winter has blown into my southern town, the city shut down early for snow that hasn't yet fallen, I'm thankful for woolen socks, a warm house, the dogs napping on the couch. Cold at last. After an especially mild December, I'll try to love the chance to wear my seldom worn snowflake sweater. And if an unexpected friend pounds on my door, I'll try to be the kind of person that other people need to be around.
Oh, Richard, gorgeous. Thank you. There's quite a few comments in here. If you please read the comments, because I really want y'all not to be missing these. Yes, Joyce wrote, yes, in grief, no need to mention yoga lessons. And several people were commenting on the refrain, I need to be around people, to fill in the blank after sister's death. Beautiful, Richard. Thank you. I'm coming to you, Laura, next. And I do want to point out, Sherry, I think you put your how to get the chapbook. So thank you for that. Yeah, Lucinda said, Richard, a fine, fine poem. Nancy wrote, I can really relate to this one. You guys are bringing the power today. I'm coming to you, Laura.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. This poem is called Yes. Yes to the dark, uneven body of each tree. Winter light picks out gray bark against bright snow. Gnarled and leafless limbs implore the sky. A sky that lowers to touch the tips of ancient fingers with the cold yes of rain and snow. Ice coats each supplicant in the shining cloak of winter as they await the coming thaw. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing, Laura. I am really enjoying, and I love the title, the yes, a sky that lowers to touch the tips of ancient fingers. Fabulous. Yeah. Karen just wrote yes to an uneven body of the tree. Yes, with lots of S's. Yeah, it is powerful. I am coming to you, Christy. Give me just a moment to find you. I see you now. Oh, I'm adding a spotlight. Look, you two get to do a joint reading. There we go.
So this poem is not from the chapbook, but it did just come out in Big City Lit. So for some of you that have already heard this week, I apologize, but I'm going to read it one more time. Reason's retreat equals an unsolved equation. I ask you to use flyer miles before I am locked in the circumstance of my body, betrayed by limbs whose only function is to subtract autonomy by degrees. You suggest we FaceTime while I count random variants on crooked fingers, terrified by how my freedoms will be divided through a process of elimination. I notice your packed suitcase is not a factor in my request. You are going on a Save the Animals retreat, imbued by the righteous notion that no creature shall be denied its natural habitat, insisting that zoos, by definition, have become dioramaed prison camps, even if original intent may have included conservation. You promise my transition into institutionalized living will be humane, oblivious to the fact that I am about to be caged. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Congratulations on that being published. I read it, but it was amazing to hear you read it.
Thank you.
And Sam, I have not forgotten. I am headed in your direction next. Where are you? There we go. Fabulous. Thank you, Sam, for being patient. And I'm just going to keep people going and doing dual we're going to have a, instead of a dance off, we're going to have a read off. And I did want to quickly say, Chrissy, people are saying great, powerful reading. Yes. Wow. What a tough poem. Courageous is what Richard wrote. So people, after you read, please check the chat section, because, you know, we've got a lot to say about how y'all are blowing us away tonight. It's all yours, Sam. And you've got a new book coming out. Can we celebrate?
Well, am I
Yep,
muted?
you're perfect.
Okay. Yes, I do. That'll be later in the year, but I did want to flash this one that's on Main Street Rag now that, you know, I know Scott would want me to hype it a little bit. So I'll be reading this one in a couple of places, but it's nice to see all these names and put them, you know, associate them with poetry in plain sight posters that I have in my basement, 1,700 of them. But as an extra bonus tonight, we're going to read a poem by Joan Barasovska, an extra bonus poem. I'm going to have to look at it. I don't quite have it committed to memory yet. Can you see that? Okay, here we go. Solstice. On this long night, clouds stand between the cedars and the stars. It is the deepest dark, an unlit cave we are unsure we'll ever leave. On this cold and endless night, time stops. We wait. This is the breaking of the year, when dawn begins its easy lift. In the fading morning dark, color floods the sky. We're at winter's start, met by light, arrived at day. End.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. That was a nice surprise. And yeah, Sam, Karen wrote, Sam, I love that you read Joan's powerful, beautiful Pips poem. Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you very much for doing that, Sam. We have time for one of yours.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
All right. Did I miss anybody that was wanting? Joyce, I see your hand is there. Where is
Mine
it? And Regina, who am I missing?
Yeah, I have one. I have one if you'd like for me to read it.
Yes, ma'am. I will come straight to you. That's the best way to get my attention, is just start talking and I will find you. So thank you, Catherine.
Okay, this is a poem that I have. It's in submission now. Can I still go ahead and read it? And
you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pause. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Just along this line of remembrance, I have a neighbor who was very special to me, and he actually passed away during the pandemic, not from COVID, but he had cancer and a long fight. And so this poem is a requiem to him. It's entitled Lawn Ministry, a requiem in memory of David Banks. Quietly and soberly, he exited through another door, one that for years stayed just slightly ajar. While the world raged in lockdowns in virtually every town, and some even dared death, he steadily lived as hard as he could, as stoically as he could, caring about everyone, loving everyone as long as he could. Often on hot days, he sat on his porch, on his metal bench, tired from the sickness that he fought and rebuked, that came back and died down once more. Yet on afternoons, when I returned from heavy days, he was there, as if he knew that even in his tire, his state of the world contemplation shifted my misdirected mind back to purpose, not because of who he was or who I was, but because of what he knew the world would need. Little neighbor children with whom he took time, showed them how and what and why. Good neighbor lessons, always showing and showing up for lawn ministries. He was a yard maestro, conducting many a concerto on grounds up and down our drive. It was a blessing. As good as a Bible study come to life, this lawn ministry. We reveled in it. Sometimes we were almost ashamed, thinking that he was up before we could even open our eyes. He was a faithful hum of love, a holder of shiny fruits of the Spirit. Then one day, the bench was empty. Faithful occupant, vacated for one more fight, sight unseen. Our prayers were dispatched and bushes around the neighborhood peeped out in the hottest days of lockdown, almost wondering where he might be. Some months later, I walked out of my house towards the car and the seat had again found its owner. My heart lurched and sought hope. I hollered across my yard into his, "Hey, Dave." He smiled slowly and almost as if to begin a conversation, but I was on a mission and he was home. I would see him again. I didn't. It was as if an angel lifted up and flew away. One glad morning, when this life is over, I'll fly away. I heard that he did not want to go, but learned even in that moment that I saw him, he knew he had to. I mourned him and what I failed to say on that last day, how he reminded me and countless others of how to live life and fight death, how to hold on to purpose, how to love your neighbors, of how to do this from feet and yards away, of how to work through pain and celebrate gain, of how to liven a lawn to create love in a community. The blanket of this powerful, humble spirit still hangs over Autumn Drive. I can see him waving from his bench, sweat rag in hand, ready with a laugh and a hilariously soulful commentary of life and lawns. Today, my tears still insist that I remember him, even now, and be more in whatever my ministry is, while it is yet day. Thank you.
Oh, Regina, that is fabulous. Yeah, a lot of people wrote a comments. Please go over them. I'm going to say a few of them because I just don't want you to miss them. It's too good. As if an angel lifted up and flew away, so perfectly expressed. That's from Karen. Nancy said the repeated sounds is in this powerful tribute that empty bench still leaves a hole today, though the lessons remain. Just gorgeous, Regina. Again, I say, and I think Levon wrote, what a group of poets here. And it's true. I mean, y'all are bringing the magic. I am headed to you, Nancy. Don't forget to unmute.
Thanks. It's hard to follow such a wonderful, wonderful tribute. This is a poem I just wrote. I walk basset hounds every day, so it's about that. Unexpected duet. The bird perched in a thicket beside the path, nondescript, gray like the branches it hid in. I passed as it sang two notes, pure and fluting, so I stopped to listen, then, given the invitation, pursed lips and blew a rusty whistle, a bit off pitch. The bird replied with two notes I knew as E to C, like the beginning of a forgotten dance tune, a Bach beret I used to play. So I sent back my song, this time in tune and clear. Our aria lasted several verses, sounding over the ravine, till my dogs, restive and needy, tugged their leashes, a signal to go on, head home, halt the impromptu duet. But the bird sang on, faster, insistent, a lover's plea, leaving me pierced and guilty and strangely empty, as if I had made a promise I could not keep.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Nancy. Karen just wrote purse lips and blue, a rusty whistle. I can see this and hear it. Regina says, I sent back my song this time in tune. Sherry wrote, wow, Nancy. I think all of us were uniquely responding to the music of this poem was fabulous. I just am thrilled by that.
Oh gosh.
No, it's good. Thank you for
It's
reading.
new, so it's really good to know it's okay. Joan has heard it, but I don't think anybody else has. So,
And it
yeah,
is hard
thank
to
you.
read. I really want to stop and acknowledge that. So, I want to thank everybody for, reading. I'm headed to you, Joyce. And so be on the lookout. After this, I have
Okay.
Lucinda. Hi, Joyce.
Okay. I've unmuted her.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. I'll point out a book that I have that got lost in the coronavirus mess too. This is a book called Standing on the Outcrop. It was published by Red Hawk Publications, and I had limited. I'm sure some of you got caught up in that too, where your best laid plans of sharing your work didn't happen. I'm reading one poem. This is about a place I love in the mountains. It's called North Cove. If you've ever heard of Linville Caverns or Linville Falls, if you've been up that direction, you know where it is. And I'll just read this one poem that describes it, if I can get my nervous act together and get my glasses on so I can see what I might read. This is about this place. As we have misused our richest land, we have misused ourselves. As we have wasted our bountiful water, we have wasted ourselves. As we have diminished the lives of one whole segment of our people, we have diminished ourselves. That's from Wilma Dykeman, a very important writer and conservationist, ecologist. Standing on the outcrop. Here, the stories linger nestled in old camp shacks, dissolving into the earth among rusting shovels and hoes. They're in a vine-strangled field of scrub pines and broom straw, where somebody's garden grew in well-hoed rows once. They stick in old yards where women worked string beans, sitting on shaded front porches, and men plowed dusty fields. They're hanging by the roadside, where somebody drove an old Ford into Cox's Creek after too much shine. They linger in a caved-in hosiery mill. They're carried in the air like spring pollen. All you have to do is wait, listen in the breeze, feel the lives come and gone. Their legends are the landscape of a burnt-off mountain whose trees will rise again, whose histories are twisted pines clinging in the wind. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Can you put a link to your book so people, it's very hard to have a book of poetry, even harder during a pandemic. So, I definitely relate to that. That's part of the reason why we were doing book launches here. I wanted to say, Joyce, there's a lot of comments here and I'm going to read just a few of them so you can hear them. Karen wrote, oh, Joyce, you had me at Here the Stories Lie. Now I just have to find it again. It just popped away. Can you say it? Here the stories linger nestled. Yes. Regina said legends are the landscape.
I'm sorry.
Fabulous.
The stories linger nestled. Yes, thank you so much. That always makes me feel good. It makes me feel still alive. I can put the name of the
definitely want you to
publisher.
feel still alive and well appreciated here for such
you've done
words.
This whole evening has provided that opportunity. I'll put my publisher there. Thank you.
Thank you. And it was Red Hawk Press, guys.
And I'm going to type that in.
Thank you.
Their own Google.
And they're fabulous. They've done quite a few. I think Joan had one out by them. Paul did as well.
Yes.
Laura Younger has put the link in the chat.
Yes, I did.
Fabulous. Les said she's still alive. Trust me, right?
She's rocking it.
I'm headed to you, Lucinda. I'm going to ask you to start the video if you would.
I can't start video. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
I'm I'm traveling, and but I wanted to be here to honor Joan and her work. This is a poem about reading is not my comfort level. Let me just tell you that to start with. But this is a poem I wrote this week about everything happening in Ukraine. It's called Chekhov's Orchard, and there's an epigraph. Life's all done, just as if I never even lived it. Anton Chekhov, The Cherry Orchard. And Chekhov did spend time in Ukraine, and he was inspired by the steppes there. And the poem begins, it's not quite spring, but coming. Titmice and chickadees raise melisma notes. Nubby buds fleck an aspiring branch. The sun sinks slow, a roseate stone, lingering in sky. And in the east, war. Fog of fire and smoke, tanks in shattered village streets, the sulfur tang of fury and fear. And I wonder about Chekhov's orchard. Will blooms persist or drop too soon? Will flesh of fruit be sour or sweet? What secret hides in the stony pit? And will springtime snow be petal or ash?
I was talking and I was still muted. I was so stunned. That was beautiful, Lucinda. Just so powerful. A lot of us, resonated with, and in the East war, that pause that you did there, and will springtime snow be petal or ash? Just beautiful. And you have a lovely reading voice. I'm surprised that that's something that you feel nervous about.
Well, thank you. You're very kind.
It's just speaking the truth. I mean, and also, like Karen said here, tanks in the shattered streets. Wow. Thank you for reading, everybody. A special thank you to Joan. I do want to point out that Joan has a book coming out with Red Hawk Press as well. And I think that's in the fall. Let me see if I can find it. Joan, yeah, out in the fall.
Yes.
The title is Orange Tulips.
Yes.
And yeah.
Orange Tulips will be out probably in November.
Awesome. And then there's a link to Sam's book in the chat section. And Richard just wrote lovely poem about a horrific subject, Lucinda. Thank you all for being here. It has been a powerful Thursday and my pleasure to have spent time with y'all.
Thank you, Malika.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night. Good time.
Good night.
Good night.